Click the links. You join the channel here or over on Subscribestar. Excuse the voice. I am dying of a fever right now, and I feel it ramping up. Like, the sore throat, the aches, the chills. All like I can feel it getting ready to just tomorrow morning, just dying. But the weird thing is, it took 3 days to get to the level, and usually fevers come on in like 6 hours, right? You feel a tickle in your throat, and then later that night, you're like, you're just wiped out. A little bit different. Anyway, so Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, and they compare like the previews on YouTube to see where the interest is. So I looked at all the three of these, and I just kind of assume all three of them would do well for different reasons. Transformers is what it is. Like when you think of Transformers, you think of the girl Megan Fox, I think, jogging across the desert with her just boobs bouncing and a bunch of CGI in the background, and it's like that's the movie. It's made to go to other countries where the language, it doesn't matter if it's in English and it's got translations. It's like it's just that hot chicks, and there's a hot British chick, I think, in one of them, and they're running around, and there's CGI and there's cool robots. It's made for like just CGI explosions, like for China and around the world. So I assume that all three of these movies would do well because they have kind of different built-in audiences for them. Even Indy. And then I read the article by John Trent, and I started to come to a different conclusion that they're going to continue the anti-white male agenda, that Mangold is going to mangle Indiana. I assume that they would try to make it good, but this article points out the history of Disney's recent treatment of men within the past 10 years when they kind of turned it around. I guess it started with 2015 Star Wars, where I was like, what a difference from pre-2015 to post-2015. I don't know why they decided to do that, but they did. If they destroy, are they going to destroy any white male characters? It's like, well, yeah, since 2015 they have. So why wouldn't they continue? And you can use, there's the image. Just a thought bubble. And I'm sure Harrison Ford is woke too. I don't know too much about him. So I assumed that they would try to make this good. And then I realized I think they might go in the other direction to try to use it as the last indie movie to get like super woke and try to transfer it over to a woman, which doesn't really make sense anyway. So then we're using Star Wars as an example. Yet Han and Luke were turned into guys who looked like they did not want to be in that movie, the trilogy. Nobody looked like they wanted to be there, except for maybe the upcoming actors, which kind of didn't know what they were getting themselves into. It was Finn was saying like, I don't want to get locked into a Disney role. That's to getting locked into like a Disney streaming show. Like you really got to take a look how hard it is to be an actor. If you're like, that's not the end of the world. It's better to do something than to do nothing, and to be locked into like the Disney streaming thing. Steady paycheck is like people trying to swing for the fences, thinking like, I'm gonna get a $200 million movie. It's like that's statistically pretty rare. Anyway, nobody. So no, Han and Luke and Carrie Fisher. Well, rest in peace. She was just kind of. She had substance abuse problems, and then she had that on top of mental illness. So it sucks. It sucks, but keep in mind you had all three of them alive at the same time, and Johnson and Abrams didn't do anything with that. You had three actors who were in their 60s, 70s, and you didn't try to make at least the first movie about them, because like Hollywood is not the Hollywood I remember from even before my time. When was peak Hollywood? I'll say from like the late 70s with the rise of Disney Star Wars in 70s, or Lucas Star Wars in 77 to, I don't know, about 1990. So about a 10-year period of the 80s. It seemed like there was just no shortage of kick-ass movies. Anyway, so what did they turn Han and Luke into? Han was a bad dad who got deleted by his monster of a son, and Luke tried to delete his nephew in the middle of the night. And credit to Mark Hamill, in more than one interview, he said he was looking at the script and he's going like, this isn't the Luke I know. This isn't Luke Skywalker. What the hell's going on? And Rian Johnson is looking at him on that stage, and like he's looking at him. The thought bubble is like, oh dear God, yeah, this isn't Luke Skywalker. It's not the Luke I remember. This isn't the character. It's like He didn't say anything more than that, but holy shit, man, that's enough. And you think like, can somebody, if you're Johnson or Abrams, can somebody talk to him, Mark Hamill, and maybe tell him to dial back how horrible he thinks the movie is? Hey, credit to him. He seems like he doesn't seem like a bright guy, but he also seems like sometimes those people will give you a more honest take, which he definitely did. Anyway, so then Luke ran away and he hid out on his rock palace, I think New Zealand somewhere, where an untrained woman had to show him the real meaning of the Force and the real friends we made along the way, or some other feminist nonsense. Because girl power. I'm sure they sold a ton of toys based on those characters. Mary Sue and Rose Tico were just flying off the shelves. Actually, they weren't. They were staying on the shelves, and then they got marked down, if you waited long enough, to half. And then I think they went to go to the shredder. So you want to see a comparison, or some YouTubers were buying them and using them for target practice, or like some kids on Twitter would see you like plinking away with the 22 at these things, and they would call the FBI. It's a violence against these actors, or it's just a YouTube bit. I guess running them over with your Ford Explorer is probably a little bit safer. You want to see a comparison between the vibe check between older, less woke Hollywood, which, keep in mind, seems to have changed very recently. Compare Iron Man 2008, which I went and I watched last night, to more recent stuff, Star Wars or Black Adams. In Iron Man, he's up against Afghanistan folks who are doing their thing. The film showed what they were doing. Just a lot of mass deletions, because that's what actually goes on. They were rightfully portrayed as the antagonists. Now, Stark Industries was also bad because they were selling arms, so it was a little bit more nuanced. Which, keep in mind, America is the world's weapons dealer. If you want to blow arms and legs off of children in the Middle East, or maybe even Eastern Europe, you might be doing it with an American-made anti-personnel device, with just enough boom to maim and mutilate, but not delete. Because if you maim an enemy, it demoralizes them more than just deleting them, because either they have to care for that person for the rest of their life, and deal with that, or they have to delete them themselves, which is very, it's very heartbreaking to have to do that. So no, but we don't take any blame for American weapons, because we don't run America. They run America. Anyway, Iron Man was nuanced in a way that Black Adam wasn't, because in that movie, the Middle East was run by some Englishmen. I'm not clear if it was a private militia or the United Nations, or but I remember that they had English accents because the West is evil. I think they did that in Andor Star Wars, where it was this ragtag group of pox people who were teaming up to fight the English Empire. And I think they even had a blonde woman with that hair that is so blonde that they dye it white. I think that looks fantastic. And she was all dressed in white with white hair, and just as white as a Jared Taylor vision, or what's that guy's name? You know what I'm talking about. I mean, that was, some of that stuff was over the top. And the thing is, if you're not all the way down the rabbit hole, you probably look at that and think, oh, all right, I guess they're trying to do World War II or something, except with English accents. But you kind of get what they're going for. But then, as you go down the rabbit hole, you're looking like, I'm seeing this an awful lot. Like, you guys really have a fixation against countries that try to be nationalist, or people that try to have in-group preference, unless it's your gang. Anyway, so it went from the vibe difference between the two movies. It went from like Afghan dudes bad to English dudes are actually the bad guys in the Middle East. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of blame to go around for sure. And no, I don't think we should be 10,000 miles away. Why would we be 10,000 miles away in the middle? Oh, we got to fight them over there. Why exactly do we need to fight them over there? Don't say it in the comments. Anyway, so Tony Stark was the hero who had to delete a legitimate bad guy, the people of, we'll say, 762. And in Black Adam, 556 was bad. That's all I know about Liberty Devices. The non-Euro people were the good guys, and good girls, of course, because a vagina-having person is better than a man. And in that area of the world is going to get more respect than a male leader. That doesn't make any sense. And yes, that's how woke movies work, where blonde men will always be bad and dark hair will be good. They have a narrative to push that dark is good and fair is bad. But of course, women are going to be better leaders than men in every capacity, especially Pox Walks BLT women. So in Indy 5, they have a woman who will replace Indy because nobody wants her. That's the point. They do it because F you. That's why. They're not making movies. They're making propaganda to push a social engineering globalist agenda. You could make an Indy with a 80-year-old Harrison Ford. Yes, you could do it. He would solve the archaeological puzzles, and a younger Chris Pratt type of guy would solve. I try to think of like appropriate actors, and really kind of a stretch to find the right guy. And then I realized, like, I don't really think there is the right guy because Harrison Ford was lightning in a bottle. Every actor, successful actor, is lightning in a bottle. I can think of actors from different generations, from the 70s and 80s, but looking around now, I realize it's like with Solo, the Solo movie that came out after the Disney atrocities, and that Solo actually bombed, lost money. And you look at the guy playing Harrison Ford, and Harrison Ford in real life, in his prime, when he was in his 20s and 30s playing these roles, he was 6'2", and he had kind of a raw bone Clint Eastwood type of a look to him. Like, he was fit, but he was lean and fit. But he was taller than average, at least at the time. And then you look at the guy who played Solo, Eichenwald or something like that. And you look at him, and he's I don't know how tall he is, but he's several inches shorter than Harrison Ford, and that makes a difference because now, before you had the hero towering over the female sidekicks, which is how like most relationships are. You're always looking down on women, at least literally, not figuratively, because men on average are just going to be taller, and like the first movie kind of worked because of that, and then in the Solo, the remake, the characters are eye to eye, and it just doesn't have the same vibe to it. So I don't know. Other than Chris Pratt, I'm trying to think around for actors like yeah. Honestly, I look at Indiana Jones. I think it's just end it. Anyway, it would be a way to hand the reins over, or just a way to end it and imply in that universe that even though there are no more movies coming, that this younger guy in his 30s or 40s, if you could find somebody, would be to carry on the tradition. The better thing would be to reboot the whole thing. I look at this mangled guy, and I know like you guys are you're gonna destroy everything you touch. Reboot the whole thing, set it in the teens and 20s, and go from there. Because Indy is not a politically correct character, even if he is essentially robbing graves to preserve them for various museums. But the narrative now is to give stuff back to the third world, so those terrible groups who commit large scale malum acts can destroy the priceless artifacts. It's nonsense, but in this present why Sodom and Gomorrah, it makes sense to the woke crowd. Another little thing concerning the other movie I mentioned, Guardians, the Galaxy, which people, was that Chris Pratt too? Which people liked and didn't think was too woke. You got to look at it with the sunglasses on. The team has one human, Star-Lord Peter Quill. Everyone else is non-human. So there's no chance of romance between, you have to have sperm and egg and a human host, unless they're pushing a romance with humans and non-humans, which, well, that's not exactly a globalist theme because it doesn't exist, but you know what I mean. They're pushing to destroy tribalism. It's like, what greater way to destroy tribalism than to try to hook up a human with a non-human? And it's like, so what exactly are you? I should go back and watch that movie again. Wonder if there's any background mixing scenes going on. So the thing is, it was woke, but it was in a more complex and subversive way than you expected. Or maybe it's just confirmation bias here. Like I said, I do have a fever. Who knows? Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys all next episode.